Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bootcamp. Uh, Today is our which class is it? Number 9, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Today we'll start with doing a quick recap of the previous session. I wasn't able to attend, so I'll just do a review of what we did cover last time, and then we'll move forward. So let me add my screen here. So here we go. So last time what we did was we were covering how to fetch data first in JavaScript and then how to do it in React. So Zeeshan had created two folders in this repository, the React use effect repository. So we can look at this demo local fetch, and then we can look at the demo fetch, which is in React. So let's start with this one. Because this is the basic JavaScript. So if you look into this JavaScript code here, what we can see is um, we've created a couple of asynchronous functions to fetch the data. So the main thing here is the fetch command, the fetch function here, which calls a URL which contains which sends back some data in response to the fetch. So, but the issue is, first let's understand why we're doing all of this. Uh, Whenever we're working on an application and there's some sort of fetch required where we have to uh, go out to some external, maybe some external third-party location and get some data back, that's not in our actual application. It takes some time to send the request and to get the data back, right? But what we want is, in the meantime, while we wait for the data, we don't want to have our application look like it's broken. We want it to look like it's fully functional. We want to handle that time in a elegant way, right? So for this, what we want to do is we want to fetch the data in the background. So in the previous classes, we looked at how to perform functions in the background, and in the last class, what we did was learn how to fetch data in the background, and then once it's the data is retrieved, then we can show the data in the UI. So
Adil, could you increase the font size somehow?
yes, is this better?
Yeah, better.
Okay, so to do this, we have a couple of different ways that it's been done. So the first is to use the fetch method in JavaScript with the asynchronous function as a get request. And what this does is normally in the difference between get and post is when you send a get request, the get is sent in the URL, and that's how the data is received. And then the post, we don't send the data in the URL. We send it as part of the body. So here, what we have is we've created an asynchronous function to fetch the data, and we're waiting for the response in the background. And once the response comes, we treat this like a promise. So here, if you come down, um, let's see. Where is this being called? Yeah. So here it's being either called as a get data function or it's being called as a post data function. So right now we were looking at get data, which is a asynchronous function using the get method. And once we call this, we are calling it here. Once we call it, this function executes and it responds with a JSON from this fetch request, and that JSON is updated into this data object here, and you should be able to see when you log this into the console, it will show the data that's been fetched from the API here. And the other method is so in this request we're not sending any data to the server. We're just sending the request that we want some data back. And then in this other asynchronous function here, we're using a post method, and in this we're calling the uh, same API, but it's now we're using the post method, so the URL is also a little bit different here. And then in the method we've set this to post, um, and in this post method we're sending some data to this server as part of our request. So we're sending the title, the body, and this user ID as a JSON string. Uh, and here we're mentioning that whatever the string is, the type of data is a JSON data. So that way the API knows that it's a JSON data that's being received, and this will result in a response using these values. It will also return some JSON object that will contain some additional data. Uh, and then that data is being saved again into this data constant as a part of our response from here. So once this promise returns the data, it will be updated into this constant, and then it'll be logged into our console, and it's being called here in the post data function call. So this is a simple JavaScript how to do a fetch asynchronously in basic JavaScript. Then the other uh, thing that was done, if you look in, let's see, not here, not here. This is the React version. So uh, yes, before I go into this, we also talked about Postman, which is a tool that it's like a UI based tool which we can use to verify the API and the API call that's being done. And then now the other thing we did was to build this out in React. So this is our React app, and here's our source folder. Right. So let's look at this one by one. If we go into our app.js file, okay. So the main thing here in the React version is this use effect function. So what the use effect function does is we're trying to create in our React application um, a way to update the state of the React application whenever the data is fetched or whenever the data updates. So we're doing this through this use effect function. And within this use effect function, we have created an asynchronous function that calls our fetch data. So here we still have that same fetch call that we had in our basic JavaScript. And again, we're using await here because we want to do all of this in the background with this asynchronous function. The other thing that was done is what we wanted to do is have two visuals. When the page first loads, the data hasn't been fetched yet. So during the fetch time, we want to show that the UI will display to the user that please wait, the data is being fetched or the data is loading. So for this, there's a state here that's been created which mentions if the data is being fetched or if it's already fetched. And that's being set to true at the very start of the application of the function. So as soon as it starts, it'll let the React application know that it's being that the data is being fetched. So uh, if it is being fetched, the render will show a data loading message here like this. And then once the data has been fetched and the data has been updated, uh, the state is updated to false. And then if it's false, then the normal return will execute, which will show the data actually. Uh, what else is there to explain here? Okay, yeah. So once this data fetches, it doesn't mean that the state has been updated. So we want to update the state element as well. So we've created a state here, which includes our initial data, which we've set to waiting for data. So that comes as part of our initial default state. Uh, and then we have the variable for our state and the function we use to update that state. So once the data has been fetched, it's loaded into this data2 variable. And but by now, the React doesn't really know that the state has been updated. So to let React know, we are calling the set to do function, which will let React know that the state has actually been updated. Um, and then the set fetching is also set to false here. So this way, um, what happens is React is going to be able to know when the data has been fetched and the state has been updated. So uh, early on in the when the first the application is loaded, it will show a data loading message while it's running the fetch in the background. And as soon as the data is returned and the state is updated, it will then revert to this its actual design, which is to show the title from this request.
Before we move forward, I just
Yep.
want to add one thing.
Hmm.
Use effect is called by React
Yep.
after the first rendering of the component.
Right.
It does not call it right away. It calls it after it has already rendered.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move forward. Zeeshan, how are you doing?
Yes, doing
Have you
fine.
have you proposed to any girl yet?
No, currently we are in lockdown, so it's still in waiting.
In, pro- in waiting. So you are not going to get married till the flights to Paris. You are going to spend your honeymoon, go to your
That's
honeymoon in
why I,
Paris.
that's why I've delayed the proposal.
Okay, okay, okay. So therefore, we will start out by basically material UI, Dishan. And
Mhm.
material UI
Yes.
is basically a component library because making complete UI from scratch is a lot of hard work. The best thing is use a pre-built library. We are going to learn two libraries today. One is the material library, material UI library, which is very popular in React, which gives us material design. It is a design specification created by Google. It is also followed in Google Android and also on their websites, and a lot of other people are also using this specification. It's a very simple specification, lot of clear spaces, lot of spaces, and very clear view. I like it very much. So therefore, we are going to start off. Vishan, your ball.
Okay. So first thing again, as Sazia said that uh, developing UI from the scratch requires a lot of work. As many of the students have worked on expense tracker API, expense tracker app. So app has CSS or UI which is done specifically. So if you guys have explored the CSS properly, so you know that what the CSS has already been written, and it has a lot of things, because even if you want to color a component, a div, you want to
Just,
provide a
just,
background,
just,
foreground.
just a second, Zishan. There's a lot of background noise
Yes.
coming. I and Adil should mute our mics.
So it's noise coming from me.
Yeah, it sounds like it, Zishan. It's from you.
Just a moment, then.
Therefore, Adil,
How about now?
it's much better. What happened?
was the time.
Okay. 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 Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So the important thing is that we need to develop each component. Even if you want to color a button, you want to increase the size of a button, you want to change the foreground, background, you need to do a lot of CSS. So if in working on a complete UI of an application requires a lot of CSS work to be done. So the library like Material UI helps a lot because it brings the design specification, how Material UI design, how component should be. The specification is there, and then it also gives you a lot of styled component. That component already have colors, foreground, font, all these things already been implemented in these component. So Material UI, let me share my screen. So here is the main page of Material UI. It's in a website where you can go and explore what Material UI is and all its detail. So it's a React component library. You can use it. To start off with, you first need to install Material library, npm install Material UI/core. So what I did is, as we discussed in last class, I created the repository initially so that all of you will have it. This is the one, Bootcamp-Material UI. I already created this repository and created the basic structure of React application. So the basic structure already we have seen this a lot of time,
Please,
and I already.
can you Zeeshan share it so that everybody can basically clone it?
Yes, this is the one. GitHub.com/Zeeshan Hanif, and after that Bootcamp 2020-React-Material UI.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So the basic structure is always the same. We developed it for us, created for us. So I'll remove those things. We have initially convert. So to use Material library, what it does is it gives you a lot of components. We have explored component, how we can create a component. It gives you a lot of components. So first thing we need to do is npm install Material UI/core. I have already done it, so I don't need to do it, so that we don't have to wait for it. Then what you need to do is, there is a simple code, React import Material UI core, and you create a button. And also you need to provide a font from the Google API so it display properly. So what I'll try do is, first we'll go to the folder index.html and we'll add this font over here. Just add this CSS into the HTML. It will into the font, and then go back to the app.js. What we can do is, now what we need to do is, we need to use component provided by the Material UI. So what I'll do is, first import button from Material UI/core, and
Zeeshan,
then
I think your internet connection is faulty. It's not showing, and the audio is also.
just a moment. Is it okay now? I just switched the connection.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
much.
better. Yeah.
Okay. So what I was trying to say is, first we need to install the material UI, then we need to also provide the font in our index.html, which I have done in public index.html, and I provided this link to font API. It's in Google Font API in the public folder and index.html. In app.js, what we need to do is we need to use component from the material UI library. So what I did is import button from @material UI/core.
I
It
think
will give.
your screen is stuck right now. It's not changing.
Uh-huh.
The audio is perfect, but the video is stuck.
Maybe
Just a
stop
moment.
the share and try
Let me
again. Yeah.
stop this share and share again. Okay, so let me show you. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we add the font API in public index.html just so that if someone didn't saw my screen, was not able to show. So it's a link CSS font API in public folder and in index.html. Closing it in app.js, what we need to do is we need to import the button from the material UI core. So there are a lot of component in material UI. We'll explore the website also. So just for the initial starter, we can see that what we have it. So button, and I written the button and hello button.
Ishan, when we install the material UI, do we need to run that command in our main root of the application? Where does that
Which
need to be?
command?
The
Which command?
installing the material UI.
Yes, I already did. Yeah, I just didn't show. It's like npm install
Hmm.
material UI in our folder.
In our
Like we,
main,
yeah,
yeah,
in our main folder, the project folder, like we did other libraries.
yep.
Uh, we do for the other libraries exactly like we will install the material UI npm install @material UI/core. So my folder
Ishan,
project folder is
Ishan,
material.
you have not given the save option.
It just did without saying the save because after the yarn npm also did the save by default without saying it.
Okay, okay, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me start the project. Npm start. Yarn did competition for the npm, so npm did a lot of
Competition,
improvement after that.
competition is always good for everyone.
Yeah.
Adil and you are competing for beautiful girls. Therefore, both of you are working hard to make money.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Well, in that, none of us win. The girl wins.
But that's life.
Okay, meanwhile it's loading. Let me show you. This is the main application page, and this is what we created the button and the color property. I didn't assign any color property just to show you guys what will happen. And after that, what we'll do is I'll apply these properties. You can once you are on this page, what you can do is after installation, you can click on the get started and you will directly move to the installation page. It will give you the same instruction, apply the fonts, then icon, and this is the first page. After that, we need lot of components to be used. So what we can do is what we can directly go first. We can go to the usage page. Still loading. Okay. In usage page, it gives us a basic React example where we can create a hello world button, and what it will be like will appear on this screen. If we create React application and we use material UI button, material UI component, and we create the button like this, so we'll have this button hello world. You can see it has a ripple effect also. So we can create multiple style of button. Just okay. So here we have an output hello world, and this is hello button. You can see the ripple effect, but you cannot see it look like a button. So what we need to do is we need to change or add some properties to it. Let me add the property. First one is primary. The difference between the two properties, just a moment. There are two properties. Contain and color equals to primary. I just was trying to directly use the primary. So what primary does is every application requires a theme. So by default, Material UI gives you the theme. So when you provide the color equals to primary, it gives you the default basic color of blue. Here you can see. So it's a rounded corner, blue color, font also has a white color. So you didn't do anything. You just created the component name button. You provide the variant. It's called contain. I'll show you what contain mean is. Color equals to primary. What you can do is you can do secondary. It will update the color. So primary and secondary, that means when we create a theme of an application, we need some primary colors to our application and some secondary colors. So this is what Material UI do for us. Contain main, there are three properties: contain, text only, and outline. When I show the variant outline, what it will do is will create a button which will just have an outline. You can see the look and feel without doing any CSS work. Text, so it will be the same we saw initially. So this is how we create a component, and all the CSS. This button is a rounded button. It has features. It has font color. Everything we did uh, directly available. We don't need to do any CSS work. You can see this. Now, where do we find these buttons, components, and what is available to us? So in the same usage page or in the same page, you can go over component link. When you click this component link, you have layout, because each time we create an application, we need a layout, a box layout, container, or a grid, and we need a component like button. So when I click a button, it will show a lot of variants to create a button. As you can see, this is a default button, primary, secondary, disable button, a link button. You can also see, let me show you. Yes, you can see a button with an icon, send icon, upload. So we can create all these things with React Material UI with just a few line of code. So we don't need to do a lot of CSS. Let me show one of the component, one of the button. Let's say send button. So I'll pick up from here send button. I'll just pick the button and I'll add it over here. Let me add div, so it will be next line. Variant contain, color primary, CSS, I'll explain, and icon. So for now, I'm just removing the CSS so we can see the result first. Okay. So here we can see the send button, but we cannot see the icon or everything because we just didn't apply the CSS. Let me go and pick CSS. So make style is in the, as we have seen lot of hooks in our previous classes. Make style is again another type of function provided by the material UI. So we need to import that also. Okay, so we icon is not available. Okay, just a moment. Yeah, just because in installation step I skipped the icon. Let me go back and show you in installation. I just didn't applied these icons over here. So let me copy this. In installation stage, we did the npm install. We did copy the font, but we didn't copy the icons. So let me copy the icon. There. Yes, now we can see we have a send button with icon. So there are a lot of other possibilities which this website gives us. You can customize the colors. So we have a button, we have button group, checkbox. So you can see the style of checkboxes. And here you can, whenever you check out the component, in that component screen you have a lot of examples, and each example have the source code, so you can easily pick the code and apply whatever you want and pick whatever you want. So we have a radio button and like this
Zeeshan,
slider. Yes,
when I started off HTML, I really wanted a grid.
really wanted
A grid component, because
okay.
in the beginning, HTML did not have a grid component.
Yes.
And now, can you explain grid a little bit?
Okay, so let me first show the. You can see the in layout we have a grid component, so you can create a grid. What grid do is, when you place a component you are creating an application, so you need component to be placed on a specific location. As you can see in case of Facebook, you on the right hand side you have the friend list and your activities. On the left hand side you have groups and other apps you are using. In center we have the timeline and also ads. So there are multiple components which we have in Facebook page. If we as we use a lot of pages, even here you can see this page. First it has a top bar, it has a right menu, it's in a center component where we see all the text, and there is a right side component where we show content. So whenever we want to place component in an application at a particular location, so you need a grid so that you can place components at specified location. For that, what we need to do is we need to create a grid like we have in this example, a basic grid. So for that, what we'll do is simply create a grid. We make it a style of container spacing, so that if, as you can see, each grid has, each element has spaces in between them. And inside we create a grid item, and we say access means on a small, extreme small screen, we need it's 12 column grid. So that needs to be shown by implementation. So I'll create this grid and I'll show you. Because to understand what this 12 column grid is, you need to see first in. Okay, so let me go over there. Just I'm removing just everything, and wait. So in this grid, what we'll do is we'll add container and spacing. And for now, I'll not be add anything else. Just let me show you what output it gives us. Something which is hidden because it's not properly styled. So inside grid, what we need is grid item, as we have over here. I'll not be using paper. It's another component to show data. I'll just use the now you can see you have hello world. It's again there is nothing. So what I'll do is I'll create 2 more grid item, and over here instead of 12 I'll put 6 and 6. Hello world 1.
Basically, so basically access is saying this is a 12 column grid.
Yes. Now, as you can see, Hello World 1 it's in first line, Hello World 2 and Hello World 3 is in second line. What it does is grid does distribute your entire screen into the width of your screen into 12 columns. Grid distribute your screen into 12 columns, so you can manage your columns, your data. So let's say you are on 900 pixel screen, just for the example. So 12, if you say a grid, a column should be access 12, that means you want to acquire a full width of a column, of a width. If you say access 6, that means you want to acquire 50% of the column, 50% of the width. So in that way, you can manage. What you can do is, let's say instead of let me create another 3 grids inside. And here what I'll do is I'll give them 4, 4 and 4. So whenever we are developing an UI, assuming again in case of Facebook page, so what we need to do is we need a 2 column at the both edge of the screen, and then in the middle we need a timeline. So what we'll do is we can create it this way. Let's say 2 column and 2 column, and between them I need 8 column. Okay, so let me just add a style so that we can instead of separate style, let me Style over here, background color. Again, sorry for the colors. Red, green, and blue are my colors. So now you can see that this is a right side component, this is a left side component, and you have a middle screen where you can manage it. If I'll resize the screen, you can see React material does it for us. Everything. You need a few more things to do if you need complete responsive UI, but this is good enough for us to initially implement. So what grid does is first of all, grid distribute your screen, your width into 12 column. Now you can manage your columns based on your requirement, what component you need to place where, and how much screen you need to acquire based on those components. So you can manage with the grid your component. So in this way you can implement the grid and you can apply your component and you can display your screen based on this. Here we have other examples of grid which you can use. You were saying something?
No, basically, I'm saying is that it is very helpful. It
Yeah.
makes designing a page very easy.
If you guys can see, here is a component. There's a card, image, and on the left side we have a price. So whenever we want to manage component like this, there will be a lot of CSS if you are going to do it with yourself by your hand. If you're trying to write the CSS, all this will be done with simple grid. There is a code definitely, but it's much more less effort than what we need to do with the CSS. So there is a grid, you can create a grid and then 12 column grid. So you can manage this component in different parts. So in the first grid, as you can see, we have an image. In the second grid, which is this one, you can see we have a standard license resource. So we can develop a component based on grid, which can display standardized or styled UI where you can place elements based on your requirement.
What is this typography?
Typography, whenever basically it's in a to display text, you need to display text in different, if you need to display text in different multiple styles, so you need a different fonts. Typography is a terminology when we use for the fonts or text. So what type of text or what type of text style you want to use. So in material UI, whenever you want to write a text in a proper format, you use the typography tag, so that it will display font based on the font library we are using from the Google Material UI. So basically, it's a style of font. So which type of font you wanted to use.
Marvelous.
Zeeshan, so in here we're creating like a grid within a grid, right?
Yeah, there is a grid within a grid. It is a parent grid. We have a grid item, then another grid item. So it's a parent. This is a column. It's column, and then we are creating another grid inside that column. So you can, as you can see, one,
yeah,
2, and it's 3.
okay.
Now in the 2 we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So in first case we were going like an horizontal, and second case we are going in vertical.
So the grid numbers normally, like if we had like one grid, but now if we're nesting the grid, the XS value, like if it's 12, how does that behave now?
It's 12 always behave within the grid. So whatever space available to grid, 12 is distributed between them. For example, you let's say at this moment we have this component, second component, third component. If we are creating grid inside this hello world 6 grid, so that means we have available space is this particular
Right.
portion. So 12 will be for this.
Okay.
That's how it's managed.
So that area would then be broken down into 12 columns,
12
and then
column, yes. Then that area will be in 12 column. Okay, so now you can use. There are a lot of implementations. For example, let's say you want to use app bar, like we have this. So there is very simple UI. You can pick from here and just again I'm ignoring. Okay, we need to import. Every time we use any component, we need to import that component like button icon from the core. So we need app bar. We need toolbar. We need icon. Need menu icon. There is a problem with menu icon. We need to import, install it separately. Let me show you. Menu, typography, and we have the button. So, no. The last thing remains menu item, which requires separate library to be installed. So for that, again, it's not here. Let me. npm install menu. After that, we can just pick this import line and use it. Or I just forget to use icons. I just didn't install the icons. It's inside the. So first thing in case of installation, what you do is include all these steps. Install the core, fonts, icon URL in the HTML, and install the material icon. So you will not face this problem. Once it's done, what we'll see is this kind of app bar at the top of our screen. And what you can do is you can do multiple type of app bar. So whenever you, as you can see in case of Facebook, you have an header. So you can create a header like this with the just few lines of code. Literally, if you can see, it looks like there are a lot of lines of code, but if you want to do it by hand with CSS, with all the things by yourself, that will be a lot more than this. It's being installed. Okay. Meanwhile, it's being installed. Let me show you a few more components. There is a component called paper. Very interesting
Zeeshan,
component. Yes.
I'll just go ahead. Sorry.
Whenever you we want to display a card in in embossed way, or it's appear a elevated way, so you can create the paper component, and you can add the uh, uh, whatever text you want. Just we saw the grid component, it has the card, so you can see the card style with the paper component. Card itself is another component, but it has other properties, the header and footer, and you can do multiple card content, card header, card actions. So card component itself has multiple properties, and paper can do also the work for you. You can see this. This is the card component. You can apply. Yes, it is done. Let me start again.
Is there any way to install these libraries once globally?
Basically, these uh, we don't need them globally because it's part of a project. So we don't need them to be in part of global library. It's part of a project, and we always need it in what you say, in a project. Let's say we want to deploy our project somewhere, so we will not have these libraries in the global project, global at the machine level. So what we need to do is we need to install it somehow. StreamYard. So let's say we are deploying on Hariko or on a search. So search will not have these libraries at the global level. So we need it anyhow.
It saves a lot of time.
Yes.
And it gives you also design ideas because most developers are not designers.
So
So
here we
therefore,
can see we have a header directly. Yes, sorry, please.
no, sorry, go on.
So here we can see we have a menu, a login button, and you can customize your application around it, and you can add multiple elements. So you can add grid uh, at this portion, and you can add your component over here. So there are a lot of things you can do with this library. Everything is available here. You can explore it. There are a lot of things, so you can see slowly these elements.
Today, Zeeshan, there is a lot of work for you, but the
Mhm.
next class you will rest, and Adil will basically design the COVID-19 app for us.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
Okay, so one last thing for this material UI, then we'll move to the charts. What I
Uh,
didn't explain it yet, that use the style hook that we have created. So to create that style, we need to use make style, and it accepts the function. In that function, what we do is it accepts the theme component. and we can create multiple css like we create css classes in a normal css file. We create those css directly in a
JavaScript.
React component,
Mhm.
JavaScript. So here we have a class called root. It has a curly bracket and you can provide the properties. So let's say I want to create my class, let's say just button. So that's my class, and I can say background color to be red, again red. Okay, so now this class I can, what I need to do is, this is a hook use style. So we will call it use style, and it will return us a component or an object, and that object will have these properties: title, menu bar, just like we have applied classes dot menu button, classes dot title. So here we have classes dot title. So if I am going to apply some class on button, well, I'll say class name equals curly bracket classes dot, and the class I have created test button. So you'll see a colored login button with the red color. So you can apply this CSS in this way. Okay,
Marvelous.
so that's all for the material UI, and we can move to the charts if there is anything else needs explanation.
Now I think we have just Adil. Why don't you sum it up?
One question there was, how do you customize? Should you customize first of all? Should you customize the CSS from Material UI? Should you leave it as it is? Like if you
No,
want to
definitely,
change the sizes
uh,
of the buttons or something like
definitely
that.
we will not always require this blue screen.
Yeah.
Let maybe my application requires a purple or a green, or I can only name these colors. There are lots of colors. So we can use if we have a separate theme of our application. So what we can do is we can create a custom theme for our application also with Material UI. We are not going into that. So if we require, we can customize our application, our app bar, like this here, the app bar. So what I can do is I can create the component, I can apply the background to this app bar, a different background. So let's say, I guess it will work. uh, so I'll have a red bar. The basic color provided by the Material UI is a default theme, a blue color, and you can change it based on your requirement. So you can do it with the styles provided over here.
Just to make everybody understand why we were laughing at colors, I and Zeeshan have been doing pair programming for a very long time. Both of us have been developing together, and we always make fun of choices Zeeshan selects for color. He, he is one of the best developers I have met in my life, but his color choice are sometimes quite questionable, to say the least.
So that's why I just mentioned initially that I can name only these colors easily.
Yeah.
Therefore, for best thing for Zishan will be if you're designing a website, just leave the colors as they are.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. For me, it's like that. Okay. Okay. So let me push this code so everybody has it. Have it.
when we started out doing development together, Zeeshan was just a kid. He's still a kid, but at that time, I think Zeeshan, how old were you? 18?
At that time, yes, maybe around just 18.
He's
I'm
still,
just 21 now.
yeah, no, you're just 19 now.
Okay, so I just committed the code, git push. Okay, well, we need another project for the chart. I just didn't have not created this, so let me. Uh, Okay, so the code is pushed on the repository. Meanwhile, project is being set up. Let's just move to the charts library.
Mhm.
So for the chart library, whenever we need to display kind of charts which we can see bar chart, line chart, pie chart. So again, you can do this. You can create this with CSS, pure CSS directly. But that will your life will be like a hell to create all these components with CSS. So the different libraries helps us for this, and one of them is a chart.js. Chart.js library, as you go to the chart.org, chartjs.org, and you have this basic interface for these this chart library. Here it's must be first show the installation getting started. Installation at the left side you can see installation. So in case of charts library, you can install it as a module, npm module. You can use it as a cdn direct url. But in case as we are using it chart library in react, so we need a react component. So as Sajja has shared the detail of the COVID-19 project, you can see that video, and that video is also using the same component. So what we can do is we can find out the React module for this Chart.js library, and that called React-Chart.js-2, because it's the second version of this React component. So what we can do is we can directly go and npm install -save React.js Chart.js2. So in this way, what it will do is this component will is a wrapper on Chart.js library, because Chart.js library does all the thing in pure JavaScript. So you'll need to create this. If you need to create, let's say, a bar chart. So here we have the bar chart, but all thing needs to be done in pure JavaScript. And in React, we need to do all things with the components. So if you need to see a detail how bar chart is being created, what properties bar chart has, what properties have a bubble chart has, a scatter plot or a donut chart or pie chart. So all the details of these bar have in this website, in web application. And you can see the background color property, border line. These are the properties which you can set for your chart. But to use it as a component, we need a React Chart JS2 library. So let's see our React app. Yes, our React app is ready. Here we will install npm install save charges, and Um, yes. So what we'll do is it will install two libraries, Chart.js and React Chart.js 2. So Chart.js is a main chart library and React Chart.js is a wrapper over Chart.js library, so we can use it in React. Let's see. Okay, and one more thing. While looking at this component, we need an examples how we can create a pie chart, how we can create, because this plain library gives us the example and we don't have a component over here. For the component, we will be using this. So this React.js chart URL gives you the code repository. In this code repository, um, I guess, yes, here we. In this code repository, we have a folder example, and it gives you all the examples and just to name it, and then you can create those components by yourself. So let's say, let me show you again. In React, there's Charts.js 2 library. We have a homepage link. On the homepage, we have all the source code of the library, and in that we have example folder. In example folder, CRC, SRC component, and here we have all the JS libraries with the examples. So let's say first I need to create a bar chart. So I'll create a bar JS. It will give you, we need to create a chart, any chart, we need two things: a data, which is required for the chart, and the component, how we need to create it. So we have this data const, I'll explain it later, and we have this bar component, which is imported from the React Chart.js bar. So let me see, it is still being installed. So once we have the installation done, what we'll do, we'll copy this bar component. What it is doing is, first one is data. It has a property data which accepts an object. This object has all the details. So as you know, each chart has different properties to display the chart. In this case, we have a first one property is label. So what we need to do, how many bar we need to display. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there are 7 labels. It will create a 7 label. So that means we need to create a 7 bars. And there's another property data set. It has array, and in that array, on the first index, we provide all the details. Label to be displayed on the bar chart, background color, border color of a bar. There's a background color of a bar, border width of a bar. When you hover a bar, what color it should be. When you hover a bar, what its border color should be, and data definitely. So let's say we have a bar chart. So we need to display on January. We need a width of a height of a bar. So it's a 65, 59, 80. So this is how it data will work. And then width, height, and do we need to follow the aspect ratio or not? That requires for the responsive side. Um, okay, it's still installing. Meanwhile, let me copy things so we can just directly. Here, and then what I'll do is I'll copy this bar component. require import. So I'll do import and constant also. We have a data set ready, we have the bar ready. Once the installation done, I'll show you the result, but let us go and see the live demo of these example meanwhile. So for example, this is a donut chart. You can pie chart, line examples, bar chart. So uh, the content I was explaining, the label, my first data set. So my first data set. This is the my first data set. Then we have labels of each bar, January, February. So we have a bars, the color of background. So each bar, the border, and whenever I hover the bar, it changes the color. So we can have vertical bar, horizontal bar, radar example, multiple. There are multiple charts. So you just don't need to worry about and just go for the component in this example, and you have all the bubble, legend, line, mix, spoiler. You have the basic examples of all of them. And if you want to change anything, any property, any information, so we'll go to the basic, the chart library, and it will explain you what property it has, what type of property it has, what data it should be. So you can go for any chart from here. Let's say I'm going to line chart. So it will show you the example, what data it requires, property, let's say background, border cap style, color. So we have the properties. All these properties can be added into our example over here. It's too much, it's taking too much time in installing.
I think actually we are live streaming now, so therefore a lot of bandwidth is being taken by the video streams.
Yes. Okay, so once we'll have the result, so we can see the once installation is done, we can see the result of the bar chart, and I'll show one or two customization, and then we are done with the chart also. So basically, let me revise. What we need to do is first we need to uh, Chart.js is a chart library. To use it with React, we need a wrapper so that it can work as a component. So we need React Chart.js tool lab npm module, which provides you the wrapper of the Chart.js, and to use what component it has, how you can customize it, what value you can provide it. This library has given us an examples, so you can go. It's the source code of this library, and in example folder, src component folder, we have all the examples over here. So let's say in case of donut, you can see the donut examples. Let's see, label red, green, yellow. So let me show. Here's the donut, red, green, and blue. Red, green, and yellow. So this library is not different from me. The same color sense. And in data set, we need so how much, because it's in a pie or a donut. So how much portion it needs to be covered? So we say 350 and 100. So 50, 300, and 100. Background color of each portion of a pie, and whenever you hover, what color it should be. At this moment it's same, but you can change the color if you need. If you hover a portion of a pie chart or a donut chart, so you need it to be colored, so it will display. Oh, I guess it's done finally. Yes. Npm start. uh, Okay, so we can see chart is not being displayed properly. We need to see what is problem, but let me just change a few properties so that we can see it's working. Okay, there is some missing. Something is missing in the example. Just a div and nothing else.
I think the height is the problem.
Yes, but it seems there are other problems also. So let me change it to the 200. Yes, height was the problem. So here we can see the bar chart. My first data set. So you can change the label of the name. I'll just show you the how we can change the value. Let's say it's 65. Sorry, 59. So I'll change it to the 90. So you can see February chart is bigger. You can change the color. Let's say for the background color, I'll make it 0. You can customize, now you can customize everything you want in the bar chart and you can use it any way you want. So now we have multiple examples of charts. You can use them individually and use any chart you want.
Zeeshan, you have done a marvelous job. I would
Thank you.
recommend you to all the girls. They are going to find a very nice, rich husband and and a very good temperament. And uh, Adil, in
Yes.
order to make you famous, we request you to basically lead the class next time and complete not complete, but start on the COVID-19 tracker app.
Sure.
And the thing is that our students are very demanding. If
Yeah.
we copy it from any repository, they catch us like anything.
Yeah. We'll
Therefore,
make one from scratch next time.
uh, okay, we'll have to make them from scratch. And the next class will be on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Pakistan time, and we will start working on the COVID-19 app. Thank
Sounds
you
good.
all. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye
Okay.
bye. See ya.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye everyone.